Hello guys and gals, and this is part 2 of the Phantasmagoria. It's a book by Julia Bruce. It is an atlas of fabulous creatures, enchanted beings, and magical monsters, and it's a reference tool, pretty much. It's been a fun read so far. We read about the little people and fairies and about a humpback that had his hump removed because he sang with the fairies and stuff like that. So that was pretty cool. Anyways, this is a book copyright from 2009. And there's the map. We are to Brownies, I believe. We talked about fairies and pixies. Then we talked about winged fairies. And then we talked about elves. Now we are to Brownies. So, I don't know why, but that name just makes me hungry, you know? Thinking of brownies, you know? Anyways, like I said, Brownies. Brownies are household spirits who do chores at night while humans sleep. They don't like to be seen, so they hide during the day. They are known by different names in different countries. Brownies in Scotland, for instance, Hobbs in northern England, Heinzel Mencken in Germany, and Nisse, Nisse, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, in Scandinavia. It says, and here we go. This is a picture here, and it says at the top, a household brownie enjoys his supper of a bowl of milk. Keeping your brownie well fed is a sure way to keep in his good books, so they will protect your house. I see. Okay, it says here, do's and don'ts. We're going to read that, except I'm going to go over here so I don't have to look through the viewfinder of the phone. Do thank your brownie by leaving small gifts of food. Do leave porridge and butter, cream, milk, and honey. Don't offer money don't offer money to your brownie. Don't whistle or swear where your brownie can hear you. Don't change anything that your brownie likes. Don't insult your brownie. Okay. Now we are going to get to this text here. Except we might start here with the domovoi. It says here, no Russian home is complete without its own bearded domovoi. Beware, an angry domovoi is dangerous. Okay, let's see what this is all about. In Russia, every home is said to have a domovoi, a house spirit who looks like a little old man with a gray beard and lives behind the stove. Like the brownie, a domovoi guards the house and its inhabitants and sometimes helps with household chores or works on the farm. To attract a domovoi to a new house, you should put on your best clothes, stand outside your house and shout, Dedushka Dobokraт. Please come into my home and tend the flocks. Or put some bread under the stove to coax one in. A friendly domovoi can warn his household of danger or predict good things, such as a wedding or a good harvest. But beware the unhappy domovoi. He can cause havoc by moving or breaking objects, moaning and banging. A very angry domovoi might go so far as to suffocate people in their beds or even burn down the house. Okay. Note taken. Okay, now, we're going to talk about brownies. Not the pastry. We're going to talk about the fairy, the little people. It is said that you are very lucky if you have a brownie in your house, but people should be warned if they upset a brownie, they could lose him for good. Brownies like to be left tidbits of food as thanks for their hard work. Particular favorites are milk, cream, honey, and porridge. However, they think these gifts are payments, they will feel insulted and will probably leave the house or begin to cause all kinds of mischief instead. Usually only people with the gift of second sight can see brownies, although they can make themselves visible to people if they wish. They look like little men, no taller than a small child. They have long hair and usually wear a brown cloak or a blue hat. Now, we have, I don't know how this is pronounced. I'm going to say Nissi, but I'm not sure exactly. I'm not familiar with Scandinavian lingo or how their how their words are sounded out. Nissi of the North. In Sweden and Norway, household spirits are called Nissi or Tomte. They protect farmers and their families and animals, especially at night. Nissy particularly like horses and will groom their favorite horse, and braid its mane and tail. Like brownies, Nisse are small, but even so, they are very strong. They also like brownies, they can be very touchy, and they don't like change. If they are disturbed or feel they have been insulted, they are likely to cause trouble and mischief, perhaps by breaking things or tying cows' tails together. To keep a Nissy happy, make sure he always has his favorite food, porridge with butter. It says, in Burma, Myanmar, spirits like the one of the statue represents are called nats. The Ein Song Nat is the guardian of the home. That's good to know. Okay. Next we have Bogarts. Bogarts. I do know a little bit about Bogarts because in an old reading book I had, there was a story about Bogarts or something, about them haunting this family or something. Really interesting. I think it was a British story or something. Okay, so let's see. Unlike brownies, who generally do good deeds, Bogarts are wicked household spirits. They are sly and mischievous hobgoblins who play mean tricks such as rearranging furniture, pulling bed sheets off unwary sleepers, making things disappear, turning milk sour, and making animals lame. Once you have a Bogart, you'll never get rid of it. That was basically the gist of the story. Okay, it says do's and don'ts. Do, leave the best food for your Bogart to keep him happy. Don't anger your Bogart by insulting him or trying to trick him. Don't try to leave your Bogart behind. He will just follow you. That's basically the idea of the story as well. Okay, it says here, in the Harry Potter books by J.K. Rowling, Bogarts are shapeshifters that can take the form of the viewer's worst fear. To counter this power, the victim should think hard about something that will make the Bogart look ridiculous. Here, a Bogart approaches in the form of Harry's greatest fear, a Dementor. Okay. Okay, now, Bogart's flitting. Okay. There was once an honest farmer in whose house a Bogart had taken up residence. The pesky creature tormented the farmer's children mercilessly, snatched their food, knocked over their milk, pulled at their bed curtains, and sat on their chests as they slept. On hearing their children's cries, the farmer and his wife would rush to their aid, but the Bogart was sly and made sure he was never seen. Eventually, the farmer and his family could stand the wretched creature and his mischievous ways no longer. The farmer gathered up all of his belongings and his wife and his children and piled them all into his cart. When his neighbors saw what he was doing, he asked if he was leaving at last. The farmer replied that yes, he was flitting, as he could see no other way to escape the wicked Bogart. But no sooner were the words out of his mouth than a voice piped up from the back of the cart. "Aye, we're flitting, you see." It was a Bogart ready to go with them to their new house. Defeated, the farmer told his wife they may as well unpack and go back to the old house, Bogart and all. Better to be plagued by it at home than in another house that was less familiar. So, yeah, that was actually the story that was in the reading book I was thinking of. Chamber Hall Bogart. Chamber Hall in Oldham, North England, was plagued by a Bogart for many years. Every night the inhabitants would leave food to satisfy it, but one night a new maid was tempted by the delicious tidbits she should have left for the creature and ate them herself, saying that plain churn milk and barley bread was good enough for the Bogart. She finished her ironing and went to bed. Later that night the whole house was awakened by her screams. The Bogart had branded her with her own iron, chanting, "Churn milk and barley bread." As he did so, eventually the Bogart was driven from the house, but mysterious noises and knocking can still be heard now and again in the dead of night, and locals reckon the Bogart still brooding in a thorn tree just down the road from the house. Perhaps he hasn't really left at all. And it says at the right in the book, Alselwood, James Drowsfield told the story of the chamber hall Bogart. The intruder was said in, buried beneath the doorstone of the house. But did it escape? That was Bogarts. Next. Goblins. Oh, we're to Goblins now. Oh, cool. It looks like they're tearing up the page. That's such a cool little thing. Okay, and it says here, Goblins. Evil, mischievous, ugly, bad-tempered. Folklore have some very good things to say about goblins. According to legend, these small, gnome-like troublemakers came from the Pyrenees Mountains between France and Spain. From there, they pinched, prodded, and scared their way across Europe, eventually finding their way to Britain and beyond. Now, we are going to read this. Goblins wander from place to place and do not have proper homes. They usually live in dead trees, holes, and caves, but some might come and live in a human's house. If they do, they will frighten the animals, pester the people, and generally cause trouble. It is said that the goblin's smile can curdle the blood, and that its laugh will turn milk sour. Although these goblins are naughty, they don't cause any real harm, but there are other very scary types of goblins, such as the terrifying Earl Kings, written about in German stories. They use strange visions to lure people, especially children, to their deaths. Ooh, that sounds scary. Nang La. High up in the Pyrenees Mountains, you will find the land of Tibet. Here many homes have a Nang La, a god or spirit that protects the house. The Nangla are quite scary to look at. They have bodies like that of a man, but the head of a pig or wild boar, and they wear long, flowing robes. In their right hand, this spirit carries a three-pronged stick made out of poisonous wood. Oh, of a poisonous wood. The Nangla live in different parts of the house at different times of the year, and he is very strict. For instance, when he is in a particular part of the house, people are not allowed to go there, and it might not be cleaned or disturbed in any way. If he is in the center of the house, where the fire is, the grate must be moved. When he moves to a doorway, no bride, groom, or dead body may pass through. But as long as his rules are followed, and he is properly looked after, with gifts of tea or beer, the Nangla will guard the house and all who live in it. Tibetan household gods are believed to be the spirits of family ancestors. When the seasons change, it is traditional for families to hold special ceremonies in honor of them. I'm just going to check and make sure that... Okay, that's it. Now, we are going to read about Cod Lad of Hilton. In country Durham, now Tyne and Ware, in the northeast of England, a goblin called the Called Lad of Hilton plagued the residents of Hilton Castle. Every night, with his wicked pranks, he was heard to cry out, "I'm called, I'm cold." So, in desperation, one evening, the maids left him a warm green cloak. When he saw the cloak, the little man danced with delight and wrapped it around himself and disappeared through a window, never to trouble the castle again. But this mischief maker didn't stop with household tricks. According to one story, the Called Lad sometimes ventured out of the castle and posed as a ferryman on the river Ware. He would take passengers halfway across the river and then leave them stranded there. Wow, that is mean, but cool, I guess. And says here, the Called Lad of Hilton Castle cavorts with glee at the sight of the warm cloak left out for him. Yep. Okay. We are to Gremlins. This should be interesting. Oh, now we're to Dwarves. Okay. Gremlins. I'm sure everyone's heard of Gremlins. I know there's that Bugs Bunny cartoon with Gremlins in it. And then there's that the Outer Limits episode that had William Shatner. There was a gremlin on the plane. And then The Simpsons did a spoof of that where there was a gremlin on the bus. And everybody thought Bart was crazy. But yeah. Gremlins. Almost 100 years ago, the world was plunged into a terrible war, now known as World War I, 1914 to 1918. This was the first war that used airplanes in battle At the same time, a new type of mischievous creature made its first appearance, causing mechanical problems in fighter aircraft. These troublesome sprites soon became known as Gremlins. Okay. And we're going to read about modern monsters. These days, Gremlins like to get into anything mechanical or electronic, not just planes. Unexpected technical glitches are often explained away by their meddling. Cars and computers are particular favorites for attacks. The 1980s stories of Gremlins inspired the children's film Gremlins and Gremlins 2, where they are shown as sweet, furry creatures who, under the right conditions, turn into grotesque little monsters with sharp teeth and claws and large bat-like ears. In this form, they go on massive destruction sprees. Luckily, these gremlins are only active at night and are destroyed by sunlight. A gruesome gremlin causing trouble in the children's film Gremlins, released in 1984. Okay. Gremlins caused Gremlins caused even more trouble for the pilots in World War II, 1939 to 1945. Gremlins love to fly, but unfortunately for them, they have no wings. Perhaps this is why they love planes so much, and once on board, they cannot resist tinkering with the controls. World War II pilots reported all sorts of unexplained problems with their radios, engines, navigation, and steering, all of which they blamed on gremlins. Some even claimed to have seen these little pests in action. They described them as ugly little men wearing flying jackets and goggles, or old-fashioned hats and cloaks, who live in holes next to airfields. Gremlins play wicked tricks outside planes, too. It was said they could even move airstrips or rearrange the patterns of stars in the sky so that pilots couldn't navigate. Of course, Gremlins found all these tricks and pranks incredibly funny and laughed uncontrollably at the mayhem they caused. Now, we are going to read about Roald Dahl, Walt Disney, and Gremlins. The famous children's author Roald Dahl was a pilot in the British Royal Air Force in World War II. He had first-hand experience with gremlins when his plane crash-landed in the North African desert and chose them as the subject for his first book, The Gremlins, which was published in 1943. A friend suggested he send the story to the filmmaker Walt Disney, who loved it and helped get a version of it published. Disney also put stories about gremlins in his comic book series. Walt Disney's comics and stories bring the idea of these mischievous little monsters to children across the world. Written about long before his 1943 book, some people say that the name comes from a combination of Grimm, as in the Brothers Grimm, who wrote a famous collection of fairy tales, and Fremlins, a popular beer of England during World War I. Others think it comes from the Old English word grimain, which means to annoy. Okay, looks like we got time to read about dwarves. We should almost be done. Yeah. Okay, we are to dwarves. Dwarves in fairy tales are small, dark men who mine deep underground for precious metals and stones, but long before these stories, the Norse people told a very different type of very different types of dwarves who were big as mortal men, had pale skin, and were believed to be spirits of the dead. The earliest stories about dwarves describe them as dark elves, but whereas elves are bright, young, and beautiful, dwarves are old and ugly, but always wise. Dwarves in fairy tales are usually friendly, fun-loving, and enjoy feasting, like the kindly dwarves in Snow White. Miners believed that dwarves were bringers of good luck and told stories of dwarves rapping on mine walls to warn them about rock falls or floods. However, dwarves are not always good. They sometimes steal, and there are stories of nasty, selfish dwarves such as Rumpelstiltskin and Albrecht the Dwarf King. Do's and don'ts. Do take notice of dwarves' warnings in caves and mines. Do leave gifts of food and drink if you want to please a dwarf. Don't swear or whistle when a dwarf is present. It says, the princess's messenger stumbled across Rumpelstiltskin and overheard him chanting his name. Okay, so that's Rumpelstiltskin right there, apparently. Okay, let's read about Rumpelstiltskin then. This is Albrecht, the king of the dwarves, right there. But anyway, There once was a proud miller who boasted that his daughter could spin straw into gold. When the king heard of this, he locked the girl up with a pile of straw and a spinning wheel and demanded that for 3 nights she spin the straw into gold, or else he would lock her up forever. Of course the poor girl could not do it, and she sat weeping in fear and sorrow. Suddenly a strange little man appeared. He agreed to spin the straw for her in return for her necklace. The second night he appeared again and again, spun the straw into gold, this time in exchange for her ring. But on the third night she had nothing else to offer him, so instead he said that he would spin the straw only if she agreed to give him her firstborn child. Reluctantly she agreed, and the dwarf spun the straw for the third and final night. Delighted with the gold, the king ordered that the girl should marry his son, the prince. Eventually the young couple had a child, but as soon as it was born, the dwarf reappeared to claim his payment. Horrified, the girl struck a bargain with him. He would let her keep her babe if she could guess his name in 3 days. For 2 days she tried all the names she could think of, but couldn't guess it. Then on the second night, her messenger overheard a dwarf as he hopped about his fire singing a strange song that ended in his name. So on the third day, when the dwarf came to the girl, she was able to reveal his name, Rumpelstiltskin. Furious, the angry dwarf flew out of the room and was never seen again. Okay. And we're going to finish off here with Albric, King of the Dwarves. In German legend, Albric was the hideous king of the dwarves. He was a fearful tyrant and was very cruel to his dwarf people, forcing them to work underground digging out precious metals and gems to make him rich and to adorn his magnificent palace. Albric was also a powerful magician and the guardian of a priceless hoard of stolen gold and a magic ring. One day the gods Loki and Wotan came across Albric and saw his gold. They tricked him into turning himself into a toad, then squashed him underfoot and carried off the pilfered gold and the ring. Albric survived, but at a price. He had lost all his gold and power. And it says here, tyrannical Albric oppressed his people, turning them into his unwilling slaves. He grew very rich off their labor. Okay, and we are going to stop it there. We are out of time, but when we pick this up, we will be reading about gnomes. And then we will be talking about wonder workers, which are wizards, witches, enchanters, that kind of stuff. Anyways, this has been Fantasmagoria. It is a book by Julia Bruce. And if you like this content, make sure you like and subscribe, and you ring the bell so you know when I upload. But with that being said, if you want to support me in any way, all that information will be in the description below. And as always, thanks for watching, everyone, and have a great day.